you're gonna look great. But if you wanna stay in shape, well, you better hit the GymWits.
That's right, man. Tell 'em.
Welcome to the GymWits podcast. I'm Ryan George.
I'm Justin Guild, a.k.a. Chef Sonic.
And we are the GymWits. So what's going on? Have you been back to the gym?
I've gone to my regular gym a bunch, but not the kickboxing gym. I'm going to have to put my membership on hold again.
We've been through that. We were through that last.
Yeah, I know.
episode.
I haven't done it yet, but I have till the end of the month to do it. So I'm going to do it. It's just insanely busy. So I need to get back in there a little bit more and just go to the gym more in general. I was away last week for a few days, and just the work has just been coming in. I have very little free time. I just don't. Excuses, yeah.
For the host of a fitness podcast.
No, I have been going to the gym. I just haven't been going to 2 gyms.
Okay, all right, fine.
It's like, what, you want me to go to 2 gyms? All right, I can get to 1. I can just having trouble getting to 2.
Good point. Yeah. All right, I can take it, but yeah, it sucks that you have to put your membership on hold. But work takes priority.
For me, the main thing is I don't like to do something when I can't do it right, and especially something like kickboxing. If I can only do it like sporadically and not really focus on it and not pay it the attention that I want to give it, then I'm just not going to do it. It's just going to frustrate me.
Yeah, fair enough.
So I'd rather focus my energy on everything else, and then when I have some more time, hit that hard.
Yeah.
So you mentioned you had a study that's a little different from many of the studies we've looked into in the past.
Yeah, well, so for today's, I guess, interesting studies segment, until we figure out a better name for that, there's a study that I found. So, it applies. It's interesting to me because it potentially applies to athletes or competitors who compete in sports that require significant weight cutting,
and people who are already healthy, who don't need to lose weight but are losing it for aesthetic reasons.
But there are also some potential implications that could apply to people who are overweight and trying to lose. So there's some interesting things about it. That's why I found it'd be something cool to talk about. So, basically, but yeah, it did follow healthy people. So basically we have lots of sports, whether it's like, let's say fitness competitions or bodybuilding, wrestling, MMA, boxing. A lot of those sports require the athletes to cut a significant amount of weight in advance of the competition, or to, most of these types of competitions, they're done via kind of a weight class. You have to make a certain weight, or in the case of bodybuilding, you just have to lose a significant amount of fat. So these are
to look a certain way.
Yeah, so you're dealing with an extreme amount of weight loss over a short period of time, or extreme amount of fat loss over a short period of time as well.
Clearly means there's an extreme diet that's going with it.
Yeah, an extreme diet that goes with it, and often combined with the extreme diet, you're also dealing with high levels of exercise. So the intensity of the exercise remains the same or increases while there's severe caloric restrictions. So we've just kind of assumed that it's not healthy for you. There's not been a lot of studies to go over, whether or not these extreme diets for competitions are good or bad for you, but we just kind of operate often under the assumption that
anything extreme is not great for you.
Yeah. So basically, this study in particular, it was done by let's see if I'm not gonna get this right at all, but if you look at the show notes, you can figure it out. You'll see the spelling, but the University of Jyväskylä, I think. I don't know.
Where is that?
In Finland.
Okay.
Okay. So basically, they were testing people that were, again, dieting significantly.
And who were they testing also?
It was just women. Just women. So the study kind of ran like this. So they had 27 participants that were already healthy, dieting.
Not only were they healthy, but they were competitive.
Yeah. Dieting down for a fitness competition, and then there was a controlled group of 23 women as well. So basically, what they found. So now the dieters were on a significantly reduced calorie diet, very low carbohydrates, high protein. Throughout over the course of this program, they lost as much as 30 to 35% body fat with little to no muscle mass loss. In addition to the significantly reduced calorie diet, they also had increased aerobic activity. So it was increasing aerobic activity as well as a reduced calorie diet.
And they were doing strength training as well.
And and the strength training. So this isn't extreme. Something that only athletes would do. So this isn't a diet that you would typically, your average, I want to lose 30 pounds is going to want to do. So what they found was that initially there was significant hormonal changes. And again, you could look into the study because there's some hormones I can't even pronounce, but there was some significant changes. But they found, so now with any type of competition, typically, you go into your extreme calorie cutting. After competition, you resume back to just your normal lifestyle. So most people do that. Again, whether you're a bodybuilder, whether you're a kickboxing athlete, or whether you're a boxer, whatever it is, once you're done, you go back to normal. So what they found was that after about 3 to 4 months of a normal diet, the hormonal changes restored back to normal, with the exception, I think it said the testosterone levels were slightly decreased, but it was within the normal range. So basically what they found was that while there were significant changes hormonally due to the extreme dieting, returning back to normal basically returned the hormonal levels back to normal after 3 to 4 months.
And now, for anyone out there that's wondering what the difference in hormonal changes were, it had effects on the athlete's menstrual cycle.
Okay,
they had issues with it.
Yeah,
I don't know exactly how, but it made changes. It affected the menstrual.
If you go through the study,
menstrual cycle.
If you go through the study, you'll see it does. I mean, obviously, you can read the entire study. You can read a summary of the study, which I'll include in the show notes. But it'll include exactly which hormone specifically and how much was affected. But it did affect the menstrual cycles, which is normal for competitive female athletes. So that's also why there are things we can take from the study, but you also don't want to take too much because it's a small group. It's just women of a certain age, certain health level. But I did find it interesting. There are a couple of interesting implications if you're an athlete that competes in a sport where you are dealing with reduced calorie diets for a competition. And so, one thing is, it does have effects on the body. But it requires kind of a recovery period. Now, again, we don't know how this affects men, how much better or worse men can, or how much easier it is to get away with that type of dieting. But it does go to show that there is a chance that when you do something like that, it doesn't. You have to return to something normal and let your body recover. So there's almost like, yes, it can be bad for your body, but there's a recovery period that will make it okay for your body. And then it's like finding the right balance between, going to those extremes and recovering from it. But I think another important thing that's mentioned in the summary that I read on Science Daily was that, there's a difference between an athlete doing this and then just your average person who wants to lose weight. So the average person, their goal for them is, I'm going to go on this extreme calorie diet and then I'm going to go to a maintenance phase. Where for an athlete, it's, I'm going to go on an extreme diet, then I'm going to return back to normal. So if there are these hormonal changes with a significantly reduced calorie diet, there may be issues to the person who goes on that crazy diet and then doesn't return back to normal, because if you're returning back to normal may mean a return back to your weight. So again, there's a lot to
so you're
unpack.
Saying that there could be issues if someone doesn't return back to their regular diet or the regular lifestyle.
But then what's a regular diet? So is it just mean going from extreme diet to like healthy diet, or extreme diet to what you were doing before?
Before, yeah.
So they're interesting. Again, there's some interesting things here, and it's one of the first studies to see how dieting affects athletes. But there's a lot more, it asks a lot more questions than it gives answers. But I thought it'd be an interesting thing to talk about for this week's interesting studies segment.
You know what I find interesting?
No.
How many times you said the word interesting?
It's like, what do you say? What do you say?
Talked about
we've
this.
talked about it before. And I wanted
say
to
it all the time.
Yeah, but okay, fine.
It'll come up for sure.
I'm sure it will. We should have a little bell that I ring anytime you say it. And then when I say interesting, you can hit the bell.
Funny. Yeah.
All right. Well, so what are we talking about today? What's our main topic for the day?
One of the most important things for people in order to keep a consistent workout and exercise schedule, and especially for people that have trouble doing it on their own, and it is accountability.
Yeah, no, so that's a simple topic. We talk about it all the time, and it's funny, when I was going through kind of my notes for today, I realized we've talked about all of these things, but we've never kind of put them all into one place. So,
also something interesting is that this is not a new groundbreaking subject.
Yeah.
Everyone knows that accountability is important, but the information that's out there on how to be accountable or how to have someone be accountable for you or how to have that accountability in your life, some of the information out there, I don't know if it's necessarily the best.
Yeah.
So we'll talk about that a little bit as well.
Yeah. So basically what kind of brought the idea for me to really make it its own subject was, it's New Year's resolution time, and we obviously did our little episode on why we don't think New Year's resolutions are the best thing in the world, but it's going to happen regardless. And right around now and the next few weeks is the time where that rush from New Year's starts to die down a little bit. So one thing that prompted me to do this is, well, how do you, this is the problem is, how do you hold yourself accountable? How do you keep going? Once that initial motivation wanes, what do you do to keep yourself going? And so I think the first key to accountability is awareness. And then we'll talk about strategies. Like the way you hold yourself accountable is to maintain awareness that your fitness has to be in the forefront of your mind. It just has to be. If you're making that change into your lifestyle, whether it's your fitness or your diet or some combination, the only way you're going to keep to it, if fitness is not already part of your life, is that you always keep yourself aware, that it's always in front. And that has to be consistent. So how do you do that? So then we talk about some strategies. Yeah.
All right. So first off, for me with accountability, with not only accountability for fitness, but with almost anything in life, and it's funny, we almost started a business based on this idea.
Yeah.
For me, the best accountability will always be when there are other people involved.
Yeah. So actually, this podcast is directly a result of accountability.
Yes.
The only reason why you're listening right now is because I had been procrastinating for years on starting a podcast. I'd wanted to do one myself, and then I had all the excuses. I needed a co-host, I needed this, I needed that. And I would not get myself started on it. And Justin had been procrastinating with stuff that he wanted to do for himself, and so we both had we came to this kind of accountability pact where we said we're going to meet every Wednesday, consistent every Wednesday, unless there's some extenuating circumstances. We would meet and we would work on our stuff, and that's just our time. And that way, I could do what I needed to do, and Justin could do what he needed to do. And so, by both of us committing to that and committing to the time, that's the other thing, is that if we had said we're going to do this, but we didn't commit to a time, I don't know that it would have worked. But the fact that we both said we're going to do it and we committed the time to each other allowed us to stay accountable to each other. Yeah. And I think that was a huge
this is our time.
Yeah. So I absolutely agree that having another person to be accountable to made a huge difference.
Or one person's great, or a group is great too. And I think that's why something like CrossFit has been so successful in that when you have to look at a group of people, like one person is hard enough, but when you have a group that's urging you to do better and do your thing, letting down a full group is hard to do. It doesn't feel very comfortable.
I'm gonna push back slightly. I think
you think one person is.
I think one person, it's a direct connection.
I guess in that
if
way,
you have
it makes,
too many people, you can kind of fall. You can slip through the cracks. Also, if you don't have, see, here's the thing. Okay, I get it. With let's say someone joined a gym, like a CrossFit gym or a MMA gym, right? You have a group of people that you're accountable to. Unless they're like your coworkers, if you stop going to the gym, you don't show your face, so you're not as accountable unless they're calling you and emailing you, or you're on a message board or something. But if you it's out of sight, out of mind if you don't show up.
But that goes for anything. You could always stop calling your trainer. You can always just stop going.
Yeah.
Look, even with all the accountability in the world, if you just stop going, if you just push it away, then it's right. Like if I just stop saying I can't make it on Wednesday, there's nothing, no amount of accountability will happen.
Fair enough.
So we have to, we do have to say that you still have to put in that effort to show up.
Yeah.
Right. So assuming that effort is put into into showing up, having either one person, one person could be, very good for accountability too. Although I found that what would be the epitome of one person being accountable in the fitness world? What would be
trainer?
A trainer.
Yeah.
So having a trainer, it's good, but there's this sort of back of your mind, well, I'm paying this person.
Yeah.
So, you know what? If I don't do it, they're still going to train me.
Yeah.
Right? Even though they tell me I've been doing bad, I'm still paying them, and they'll still keep training me.
Yeah.
So, while it's great to have a trainer, and while they'll help keep you, at the very least, if you keep paying a trainer to do it, you're at least showing up, because you have to show up for those sessions.
Yeah.
So that in and of itself is effective.
Okay.
But you could slack a bit in between.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that's when you're paying someone to do it. I felt with a CrossFit or a team thing, you don't want to fall behind the rest of the team. If that's part of your personality, where you're somewhat competitive, and you're like, I want to keep up with this team, and there's this sort of group spirit that's pushing you along, then that could really help.
Yeah. Okay.
So both of them are good in their own way.
Yeah, having people to be accountable to, whether it's a group, whether it's a person, a friend, or trainer.
I think a workout buddy is really good
workout
too,
buddy helps too. So I see often where one person will stick, but it is good to have a buddy, because you're accountable to each other, and you don't want to let the other person down. All right.
So if we don't have someone else, a person.
Well, another way to hold yourself accountable is goal setting. We talk about goal setting all the time. We did a whole episode on goals, so we're not going to get too much into detail. But I think the key is how you structure your goals. If you just say, I want to lose 30 pounds, that's a hard goal, because you're measuring against a large goal that's far in the future. If you say, I want to lose 5 inches, on my waist, or if you say, I want to bench press 300 pounds and your current max is 100, there are things that are too far in the future. So you kind of have to have like 3 sets of goals. You have your long-term goals. That's where you want your objective. That's in the future, but that you want, and you have to be realistic about it. So it's always, you always have to say, okay, this is something that's realistic. It's important to have, though, short-term goals that are things that are achievable. Lose a couple pounds, lose 5 pounds, lose an inch, bench press. If you're 100 pounds, bench press 110 pounds. So you need to have shorter incremental goals that are attainable in weeks or a month, that are leading you towards your long-term goal. But it's really important that you both psychologically and physically, that when you meet those little goals, and I've seen this from experience, it feels really good and it's really helpful, rather than feel like you're chipping away at 30 pounds. Yeah. If you're losing, every 2 pounds is a goal for you, it's much more rewarding, and you feel good because you've achieved a goal, and then you go on to the next and you achieve the next goal. So that's an important aspect. But another thing is about kind of centering around goals is we often think about goals as, like, again, a fitness goal or a weight loss goal or inches or muscle building goal. But another important thing is that you make it a goal to get to the gym X times a week. That your goal is, I'm going to make it 3 days a week or 4 days a week, or I'm going to do cardio twice a week and weight training 3 days a week. That those are your goals too, because those are things that you have to reach and be attainable and be accountable to yourself too. So that's just, in a lot of ways, it's just as important as the physical goals. Is, I'm going to eat X amount of meals a day, or I'm going to eat breakfast every morning, or I'm going to drink less coffee or more coffee, or drink X amount of glasses of water. That your goals are not just what you achieve, but also how you achieve it is built into your goals as well. And kind of related to goals is that you're tracking your progress. So another way.
Now, what are some effective ways of tracking progress, and what is and sort of. I know, obviously, the thought was going to come to mind, well, get an app or get something that's going to do it and actually sort of keep the numbers. But what's going to keep you looking at that app? Like, because I find that electronic stuff and non-human non-human items will sort of help, but they're easily ignored.
Okay, so funny. I wrote out 3 different things that are all interrelated. So we'll talk about them in separately. So to me, there's tracking progress, like your goals, and then there's record keeping. So that's like a food journal and an exercise journal. So when it comes to tracking your progress, that should be done. So you've got to be consistent, but it should be done, let's say, weekly. Whatever your goals are and that you're working towards, that you track that weekly. I think it's important. You don't want to do it daily. You do it daily, it can be frustrating.
It's too much
Too
frustrating.
much. You don't want to do it monthly, because if you do it monthly, there's not enough time in between sessions to really see your progress, and it can be frustrating if you check today and then you check a month and you make no progress. Versus if you check today and you check next week and you make no progress, you can start to make adjustments. Maybe your diet's not quite as good as you thought, or maybe you're not working out quite enough. So it's important that when you're tracking your progress, that it's done weekly. I would pick a day. Let's say it's Monday morning at 7 o'clock in the morning. That's your day and your time to check your progress, and you do it consistently at that time. Now, another important thing is the consistency. You do it every week. Even if you had a crappy weekend, if it was your birthday weekend and you drank all weekend and you ate cake.
Hold on. I know we've sort of been talking about this a lot, but here's my issue with it. What's keep making you do that?
Okay,
so we keep saying let's do this, but what is making you do that?
There's nothing forcing you to do that, right? There's nothing that will force you, unless you got somebody with a gun to your head.
What will help you?
But this is why I'm explaining. Before you cut me off, no, I was getting to the point. So
okay.
So basically, if the goal is you. Again, I said this has to be in the forefront of your mind. So you have to be consistent with your tracking. So that has to become a part of your life. Is I'm going to check I'm going to check my progress every Monday at 7 o'clock, even if I have a crappy weekend. Right now, the reason why is if you have a crappy weekend, it's set in your mind, and you're still holding yourself accountable by checking. So by checking, you're holding yourself accountable. So that's part of your routine. As soon as you stop checking, if you say, I'm not going to check this Monday because I had a crappy weekend and I don't, it doesn't matter. Now you're no longer holding yourself accountable, because
kind of like lying to yourself.
Yeah, exactly. You're like, that the results are not going to be good, but you're just going to ignore it. And that's the key is you can't ignore it. So the key is you have to be consistent. So that's why I'm saying, like, I've seen
the consistency actually creates accountability.
Yes, exactly. So that's where I was getting at with the having a crappy weekend is, even if you have a crappy weekend, you still got to check. You have to look at yourself and say, I did that this weekend, and this is how I paid for it. Otherwise, as soon as you stop tracking, you're not holding yourself accountable. So now, related to that is record keeping. Same thing. So when I say record keeping, I'm referring to if you record your diet, what you're eating. Now, not everybody loves doing it, but it does help to hold you accountable. If you have an app or you write in a journal everything you eat as you're eating, you're holding yourself accountable. It's one thing to go and eat a bad meal, let's say a burger and fries. It's one thing to eat it, but it's another thing to eat that, and you have to write that down. You have to tell yourself. It's a weird psychological game you play with yourself, but I know tons of people who, because they have to write it down, it makes them make a better choice.
Sure.
And if you make a bad choice, you're right. You're still holding yourself accountable by writing it down. So be consistent with your tracking. If you have a bad week of exercise, as long as you're still tracking your exercise, you're holding yourself accountable. So
and even at least when if you have a bad week of exercise, you only work out one time, you could see the results.
Yes.
Well, I only worked out one time, and these were my results. So it almost you could really see it happens right before your eyes.
And by record keeping, again, you're keeping your fitness and your nutrition at the forefront of your mind. The moment that, so again, if you could have a crappy week of eating, but as long as you're writing it down, it's still at the forefront of your mind. You could have a crappy week of exercise, but as long as you're keeping track, it's at the forefront of your mind. So yes, there's nobody with a gun to your head holding you accountable, but by being consistent in your record keeping and by being consistent in tracking your progress, you're holding yourself accountable, because you're making yourself
creates accountability.
Yes, you're making yourself aware of your progress. So that's the main point of it. And then now going back to dieting, a little thing when you're tracking your food, you're eating, is again, be consistent. Do it as you eat, because another thing that we do sometimes is we can have a meal, and if you do it later today, you just conveniently forget the other, something you maybe have. Let's say you have a burger and fries, and you add like mayonnaise to the burger, or ketchup and mayonnaise. Or something. You'll forget the little extras that you add. So it's important that as you're eating, that you record it and keep track of it, so that you have the details, and it's all there for you. And then I guess one other thing. A couple other things. Anything do you have to add based on what
I think it all sounds good. I think obviously part of it is the way that you're going to keep records. Like, do you have a little physical journal?
So
do you have an app?
There are a couple of options for that. Yeah, like there are apps. There's MyFitnessPal, which is pretty good especially for your diet. You could just write it down in a journal. You could write it down in a notes app. You could use Evernote or something like that. You can track it in a notebook, so you can write it down. You could put it on your computer. Just like I said, I would prefer it's something that's portable, that's with you all the time.
Yes.
So for most of us, that's a smartphone. You could use a memo, but it's just, well, not a memo. I would say no, because it's easier to not listen than it is to actually look. So, but just just keep track as you're doing it.
What
And that
about
helps.
setting little alarms and reminders throughout the day?
Yeah, you could do that.
Reminding you to do that. Once
Yeah.
again, do things that will keep it in the forefront.
Yeah.
As you mentioned. So even if you have a little alarm that goes off, or a little note that goes over and says, "Have you tracked your food today?"
Yeah.
Right. Saying stuff like that will help. I think so, at least.
Justin will even lend his voice. If you email us,
Yes.
he'll lend his voice for you to put on an app saying.
In fact, that's a good idea. I think that we need to do our GymWits accountability reminders.
Yeah, you let us know what you want Justin to say, and he'll record whatever you say as an accountability reminder. All right, and then there's one other part is for accountability is just planning and preparation. So
Sure.
have a schedule, have it planned out, and in addition to having your plan, try to think about what obstacles exist for you, and create kind of a contingency plan. So for example, if you have kids and you've got a babysitter, and okay, I can exercise from 4 to 5 because that's when the babysitter's with the kids. Kind of have a contingency plan. If the babysitter's sick, what will I do? If she's sick, then or if he's sick, I'll work out at home, or I'll work out on Friday. So just kind of have in mind, like, what are the obstacles that you do face when it comes to exercise and nutrition, and think about ways to what's my response when that obstacle comes in. So, if it's a diet thing, let's say you're used to, you prepare all your meals every day, and that's the easiest thing. But one day, you're not able to prepare the meal. Kind of your contingency plan is, well, I know that there's a restaurant down the block and they serve great, whatever, falafel or something, whatever you like, so that's healthy. So that's kind of part of it too, is kind of have a contingency plan, because it's when we're left to our own thoughts or making our own choices, we often make bad choices. So you want to eliminate, unfortunately for most of us, you want to eliminate making your own choices. I can't tell you, like, I've talked about doing this meal pal thing, and so many times I've made because I choose my food the day before. I just make good choices the day before, because I'm thinking, tomorrow I'll be fine. And then during the day, I'm thinking, wow, I should have gotten the chicken parm, or I should have gotten the 2 slices of pizza or whatever, but I've already made the good choice. So, the more you can eliminate your own choices in the moment when you're hungry, the more times you can eliminate the babysitter's sick, so I can't work out today, the better. I mean, that's all I've got for this. Anything you want to add?
Well, yes. What I did was I Googled accountability, fitness accountability.
Okay.
And I looked at a couple of the top hits, and we've got one from Daily Burn and another one from everydayhealth.com, and they're both on tips and tricks to improve workout accountability. Okay. So the first one we're going to look at is Daily Burn, which is now a giant in the home workout industry. They have all those different workouts.
Yeah.
And so it gives a few tips, and I wanted to see what you thought about these. We can discuss these. So the first tip that it gives, they give, let's see, 15, and we'll go through them quickly. First one is, it says sign up for a competition, and it says that if you sign up for a race or CrossFit competition, that it's going to force you to compete, and it will cause you to be accountable. Yay or nay?
It's useful for motivation, but I don't think it's useful for accountability. I think accountability, and that's a problem that sometimes people conflate
motivation
and that's the issue is, like, accountability is a different thing. Motivation, anyone can get motivated. Like we talked about it. It's New Year's. Like, anyone can get motivated for their kind of quote New Year's resolution. The key is staying motivated.
So you don't think if you say something like, I have to be fit by this date, or I have to be able to run, be strong enough to do this, that won't be accountability.
Just don't do it. Like you said,
you just drop out.
The difference is, if it depends on what, it's like if you sign up for a competition that you have no way out of, then it's a good way to hold you accountable. But also the issue with competitions, again, we want accountability to be long term.
Yeah.
So like the tips I gave, as far as I guess if you have a goal, but everything is meant to be long term and sustainable. This is better for like goal and to motivate you, which is great. Like I'm not saying don't sign up for a competition, like don't do a Spartan race or sign up for a marathon or sign up for a fitness competition. That's fine, but I don't know that it really works. It's more about motivation than it is accountability.
All right. So 2 and 3 was to put money on the line or something else, being like give money to a friend and you have to earn it back by going to the gym, or say give if I don't something like, or housework, like if I don't go to the gym, I have to do your housework. I have to clean your house. You think something like that is effective? I think it's weird.
I don't think it's super effective. Again, it's like if you're willing to risk it, then you're just willing to give it away. It's like, all right, I don't need it.
Well, what I think someone will do is they'll do it once and they'll force themselves to work out. And they'll actually give a negative spin, like, ugh, and they just won't do it again.
I know people who's like say, okay, I made a deal with myself. I'll get myself this shirt that I'm
sure that's coming
this
later.
Nice shirt that I want.
Yeah.
Oh, is that coming later?
I'm sure of it.
Okay, well, regardless, it's again, it's not. I guess it can hold you accountable. Like it
but it
depends on the
only
person.
goes until you get the goal, and then
if you're really money focused, and you say like you tell me like, all right, I've been slacking. I'm gonna give you $50 if I don't go to the gym tomorrow. I can see how that for some people might be effective, but at the same time, it's like tomorrow you might say, screw this, and you might say, oh, Ryan's not going to take $50 from me, or B, you might say, screw it, I don't need the $50. So I can see it as a way to be accountable, but again, it's not long term.
Yeah,
you're not going to do that. You might do it 1 or 2 times, but you're not going to keep doing that. You're not going to keep paying me.
Unless you give someone like $10,000 and say I need to earn this back.
Look, I'm a trainer, and I know I've had people that they'll buy packages and there's a cancellation policy, and they cancel all the time. And they don't care. So it varies. It's not a horrible idea, but again, I
don't love that
I'm
one.
thinking when I talk about accountability, I'm thinking of it more sustainable accountability.
All right, so share your goal on social media.
It's a good one, but again, it's
sharing your workout plan. Say when you run, you're about to run, or do it the night before, something like that.
Here's where I think it could work. If you create like, this is my fitness journey, and you create a blog, or you're on Facebook and you post.
It's funny because the next one after that is make a video diary.
Well, okay. So basically, if you just share on Facebook, hey, it's January 2nd, I'm going to lose 80 pounds this year, and that's it. That's great, but no one's going to remember it. We're inundated with so much stuff that nobody's going to remember that goal. And
they might get annoyed by it.
So maybe annoyed or not, but regardless, like that's not enough for you to stick to it. Like announcing to social media that you have a goal is not enough to be sustainable.
Or just even every time you work out.
So it's got to be something like a journal or a blog that's a regular thing, like a diary. That might work because it's like a regular. Again, if you're consistent, if it's a regular thing, and you're like, here's my like fitness diary, and you really commit to it, that could be a great way to be accountable. But it's got to be something that's like consistent, that you're using it to show people. It can't just be like an announcement on social media.
Okay. So, all right, enjoy your own rewards program, which basically what you said.
Yeah, I don't think that works.
Give yourself some. Okay.
Yeah, because again, it's like if you're like, all right, I'll reward myself with, a nice suit if I lose my, if I get my weight. It's like, well, you can still just reward yourself. There's nothing about losing the weight unless you're literally in a competition or a contest where by losing X amount of weight you get X amount of money. It's your money. You can still reward yourself regardless. So I don't see it as being, a great plan.
Right.
Unless someone else is involved. So I guess that's always the caveat is if I tell you, hey, I want this thing, but I will not do it unless I get to this weight, and you hold me accountable, that's fine. But again, there has to be somebody else involved in a rewards program or some kind of a money type of thing.
All right. It says to do a visualization session, meditate every day about what you're trying to do, what you're trying to accomplish.
I guess that, but I don't know that. That's more. I don't know if that's accountability or not. I guess it could fit into that.
A little bit more of the motivation.
Yeah, it sounds more motivation. Not a bad technique, but I don't know that I would categorize it as like accountability.
Just a sort of a good thing to do in general.
Yeah,
things in life. So it's just all right. Take photos every week.
I would. So compared to what we said about doing it, I would do the goals. I would do the progress every week. I would do a photo every month.
Okay.
I think every week for a photo, you're not going to notice as too much of a difference. But every month with photos, if you're consistent, you'll notice some difference.
Okay.
So I'd say every month. I'd say that's not a bad one.
All right. Do it for a cause, meaning like do run or do exercise for charity.
I guess, but I don't think that's again. It's got to be.
Once again, once you're done with it, you're done.
Yeah.
So
when you're
you'll
dealing
do it
with
for the temporary, but once you're finished with
dealing
that.
with accountability, it's got to be more internal.
All right. It says follow a long-term fitness program. I don't see how that means accountability. That's just following along. It says choose a program where you're automatically holding yourself accountable to something.
No.
I don't.
I mean, again, we talked about that.
That is the.
It's the long-term program's great, but the whole point is the long-term. There's not enough immediate kind of satisfaction and feedback for it to hold yourself accountable. So for a long-term program requires that it be broken up into pieces that the person can kind of digest.
All right. Sleep in your workout clothes. So when you wake up, you have to do it instead of peeling off your pajamas.
No.
All right. And I'll tell you why this doesn't work. You know how many times I've put on my workout clothes and said, I'm going to go, and I didn't go.
Yeah.
So it doesn't help. Set your electronics to shut down. So to go against you.
I mean, again, one of those things. It's an annoyance that you can easily reverse. So I don't see how. I guess it could work short term, but not. It's not a long term. So
saying that turn your electronics. So they're assuming that you'd rather go on social media or you'll FaceTime with someone rather than going to work out. In fact, I think the opposite. I think you should have your electronics tell you to constantly be working out rather than shutting down. Do the opposite. Let others track your workouts. So it's basically saying join something that is a competition or a leaderboard.
Depends on the person. If you're a competitive person, that's great because you'll want to be at the top. If you're not a competitive person, it could be frustrating.
And in fact, it'll be detrimental. You'll just you'll lose motivation and you'll stop seeing it. So very few people. All right. So make a journal where you can vent in it, where you can talk about your reps.
So we talked about so a journal is good. Also, a journal talking about your thoughts about your exercise isn't a bad idea too. So if you're more about if you feel better like kind of writing about your workout, less like writing the details, that could work.
All right, sign a contract and sit down by yourself or with a friend and write down your goals and what you entail, and then write possibly your goal. Yeah. Whether you tie rewards or consequences to the contract, then sign it.
No,
all right.
It has to be done in conjunction with short-term, goals and everything else.
I like the consequences idea. What if you don't work out or you do a certain amount of workouts, you have to receive 2 or 3 leg kicks from Kognapa?
Sure.
That's a good one, right?
Pain is a good. Yeah, I guess so.
All right, you'd work out then, big time. All right, so with the daily burn,
some good, some not
most,
so good.
I don't like most of these. I think there was a couple of the good ones. All right, so let's see how good this one from Everyday Health is. All right. Stay accountable for weight loss, willpower. All right, so
that's just the intro.
The intro. Make friends with your scale. So it's telling you to weigh yourself all the time.
I mean, I wouldn't do it daily. I would do it every week.
In fact, I'm not a big, I've always been a believer of look at the mirror, not the scale.
Yeah.
So I don't
measure your progress weekly, whether it's a scale or inches, whatever it is, measure weekly.
But my issue with that is that I just know water weight.
Yeah.
And I know fluctuations in weight.
Exactly. It makes a difference.
If
you're checking your weight, check consistently first thing in the morning.
Wouldn't it make more sense to check your body fat?
Sure.
Rather than just
But it's hard.
Weight.
That's difficult.
It's a little more difficult to do.
Yeah, if you don't have the right scale, and even the scales aren't great. But yeah.
All right. Now it says, similarly, make friends with use a tape measure. I think that one's a little better than the scale because it actually measure yourself.
Yeah.
You think that one's a little better than the scale?
Here's the issue with the tape measure is not everyone there's not that there's an art to using it, but there's a specific technique to doing it. It's really easy to get it wrong. Like I know trainers who do it all the time. We just don't, it's really easy to not measure properly. So measuring another person is challenging enough. Measuring yourself can be a challenge. But tape measure is great if it's accurate.
It's funny because I always used to use a tape measure to measure my biceps. And no matter what the tape measure said, I always said my biceps were 16 inches. So
yes, that's it.
I don't remember what the tape measure says, but that was what I said.
Yeah. All right, food diary. We talked about it, so we could skip this one.
Okay. Yay or nay on the food diary again?
Yay.
Like it? Yes,
Yeah.
definitely important.
Save your skinny jeans.
So it's basically saying to either save old clothes or save clothes that you want to fit into, or maybe even buy clothes knowing that you can't fit into them, but you will.
Oh,
as
okay.
incentive.
Yeah. I would. I don't think it really works. I mean, it's good to save it just because you probably don't want to spend the money on the new. But I don't think it's going to work as a source of motivation.
What about buying new clothes, knowing that, or buying something you really love and saying, "I'm going to get it. I'm going to be able to fit into this."
I mean, that's nice, but I don't know how. Again, it's not as lasting because it's easy
gonna
to
sit
put it
in the
off.
closet for a long.
It's all right. I'll get there
time.
eventually. So.
Yep. All right. So it says have a diet BFF. Basically, go on a diet with someone.
Yeah.
I think this one's good.
That could be good. Yeah, we talked about having a friend with you can be helpful. So yeah,
especially they're following the exact same program. I think that, in fact, if you're in a relationship, I think that one with diet is actually quite effective.
Yeah.
Because I believe so. Because especially if you spend a lot of time together, your lives are so intertwined.
Yeah.
You're gonna eat dinner a lot.
If
you share a diet, I think it's.
I'll push back a little. Just an experience I've seen many couples that either one will put up a lot of resistance, or they don't eat together, or
so ends up causing problems. In the
yeah, it can cause problems.
That's
like
funny.
if one person cooks all the time, there's just always an issue. Like there's always some kind of conflict.
I feel if they're working together for the
we know somebody who used the worst trick ever. Do you know
which one was that?
So let's see. I'll keep it as neutral as possible. So if this person does listen, it doesn't get loud. But basically, one person was gaining a lot of weight. The other person was gaining some weight too, but realized that he or she was gaining the weight and wanted to stop. So what this person would do is, before leaving work, they would eat their bad meal, like pizza or whatever, or burger or fries. And then that person would go home and say, I'm not that hungry. I think we get a salad. It's a way to get the other person to start to eat better. But I don't think that works.
That's not I kind of like that strategy. It's not a bad
terrible
idea.
strategy. I mean, it's fine, but it's
good if you're trying to.
You're trying to get your spouse to lose weight, but you don't want to.
Yeah. That's funny. That's pretty funny. All right, so it says keep the big picture in mind. Setting a specific goal can be very effective as a weight loss strategy.
Yeah,
I
we've
guess,
talked about it a little bit.
Just of course having a goal. I
Yeah.
mean, I don't see how that is any form of accountability.
Yeah.
Chart your fitness feats.
Yes.
All right. So
Again,
this one is very good.
Yeah, I think that's a very good one.
Experts agree that physical activity is key to maintaining weight loss. Really. Thank you for mentioning that.
Yeah.
So, definitely if you chart your fitness, very good. It says find an app, MyFitnessPal.
I mean, the app will help you. The app you need to use to hold yourself accountable, but yes, an app can help if it's tracking your.
It helps.
Your diet.
It makes tracking and things convenient.
Yes.
So, and that sometimes helps. Convenience helps, right? If you have to carry around a big lumbering journal, like no one wants to do that. So it helps a little bit. So yeah, the app will help a little bit. It says get a pedometer. It shows you how long.
Yeah, if you use something that measures your steps, those can actually work. I know people who had a good deal of success using the activity tracker tracking. Well, honestly, okay, I'm gonna say, for some people it works. Like they see the steps and it makes them want to achieve a certain goal. However, like there's conflicting research on whether activity trackers are actually useful or not. So I would say that for some people, if they're consistent about it, like actually seeing your steps might help you want to be more active and take more steps. But I don't know how much the science backs up whether or not it's useful. But yeah, it could be. I think it can help. Again, it's all about awareness.
All right. Ooh,
create your own rewards program.
Again, something like that. Buy yourself something or money.
Yeah.
Right?
So I would say that the everyday health one is definitely a little bit better than the Daily Burn.
There you have it. Daily Burn isn't good. Don't patronize their program.
True.
I'm just kidding. Daily Burn could certainly be good. I've known people that have used it. A lot of people have liked it.
Yeah. So I guess that's it for accountability. If you have questions, definitely shoot us an email at thegymwits@gmail.com and we'll answer any other accountability questions.
Let us know how you guys stay accountable.
Do
you guys have problems with accountability?
Yeah.
does the GymWits help you stay accountable?
Again, if you want Justin's voice to keep you accountable,
I think I'm going to do that. I'm going to do my voice that'll set you as reminders for the.
You can actually just add it as a.
I think it is part of the app. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's a good idea.
Yeah. All right. So we have an Ask the Trainer, an interesting one too.
All right.
Very specific. So we could apply it to other sports actually. So.
All right. So it comes from Emmanuel. Hi, I've been listening for a few months and I'm loving the information. Period.
What?
No, I just wanted to leave it at that because that's pretty good.
Okay.
All right, no, there's more. There's more. I heard in a recent podcast that you train Muay Thai. I have been training for about 2 years, and I have improved significantly over that time. The one glaring issue for me has been my footwork. I often feel clumsy and off-balanced, especially when throwing strikes. Do you have any advice or tips to share on how to improve footwork for Muay Thai?
All right, that's a good question. So I say this applies to other sports. So any in general footwork, we talked a bit about. Last week's Ask the Trainer had to deal with calf issues. So there's you'd want to listen to last week's discussion a little bit, just because there's some good information there. But
I have one thing to add first. So now when we're looking at footwork, how much of that do we want to be like specific technique footwork for boxing or Muay Thai as opposed to getting yourself to be a better, more agile athlete?
I'll talk about that.
What comes first and what should you focus on? Or do they come together?
They come together. So there's two parts when it comes to your footwork. You're going to, or as far as training your footwork. So I'd say there's kind of just overall coordination and motor skills. So those are things you can do like with like an agility ladder, if you learn some agility ladder drills, if you do some like speed, agility, quickness exercises. Again, there's a book that's been out for a long time, many editions, SAQ, which stands for speed, agility, and quickness, that has tons of great drills. You can find tons of just footwork drills online. You go on YouTube, you find, you don't even need to buy any books.
And what about some balance exercises too? Because especially while throwing strikes,
balance can help,
be very
but
important
I
too.
think for this specifically, like you'd want to focus a lot on the footwork. Balance exercises are great too. So I think there's one thing where it's like just overall kind of motor skills, overall coordination skills that you don't train as much. Often in many Muay Thai camps, there's not an emphasis on specifically working your footwork outside of like actual training movements. So that's one way. Again, I don't know where you train, but that's one way to do it. Just work on your footwork overall. But obviously with any sport, there's your overall footwork, but then there's also your footwork as it relates to that sport. So there are some things you want to consider with Muay Thai specifically, which is, watch fights. Like I know a lot of people who train who don't watch Muay Thai fights. They watch a lot of MMA, and there's Muay Thai specifically has a different kind of footwork. So you want to see how the weights shifted back more. So there's a weight shift that's a little bit more on the back leg. The left leg or the lead leg is a little bit more lighter. Watch the way they move. Watch the pacing. There's much more of a rhythmic kind of a rhythm to Muay Thai that's a little bit different from other combat sports. So I would definitely try to watch and emulate the movement and the pace that you'll see in Muay Thai. Now, the other thing to just work on is just work on your own. Make sure your stance is strong and that you're moving. When you move forward, you move forward properly, that you're not crossing your legs. When you move to the side, you don't cross your. So there are a lot of little things. When you pivot, there are the specific movements within Muay Thai that you have to practice on your own, especially if you feel like you're not getting it right when you're training.
So I used to do that a bunch. Not that I'm great with footwork, but I would do that. What's this quick thing? Would you recommend doing maybe a couple boxing lessons?
Well, so that was my next.
To
my
that
next.
help? Because
The
we
next
know
thing
that
I was
they
going to
are all
offer
about their footwork.
So yeah, that was the other thing I was going to say. So Muay Thai is very specific footwork. Again, these are things that you want to, you can go online, go on YouTube, look up Muay Thai specific footwork, watch fights. The biggest thing you do is watch fights. Make sure a couple things when you're striking is that, so you mentioned when you strike, you have issues. Make sure your balance is right. You're not lunging into your strikes. So as Justin mentioned, make sure you're always balanced and centered and that you're not lunging into things, that everything is you're always balanced when you're throwing your strikes. Now, when it comes, it's an important thing is when you're practicing, vary your pace. So a lot of times people train and they go hard on everything, and sometimes you need to slow it down, because if you try to go too hard, then your focus is on power and it's not on technique. So make sure you're spending time shadow boxing and working technique, not just like going crazy. And again, I don't know, but I see this often. So now the other thing is boxing. So boxing, and this is where like I've developed pretty decent footwork, and a lot of it's because I do boxing in addition to kind of complement the Muay Thai. So boxing footwork is different. There's certain things you can't do when you fight if you're doing a Muay Thai fight or you're doing an MMA fight, but they work so much on footwork because boxers have two tools. Like they have their fists. That's it. You can't hit with anything else. So they need to be creative with how you avoid punches and how you get into position. So a lot of it's done with footwork and head movement. So you can try to take some boxing classes, work on how they move their feet.
It creates a good
as
base
long as the
for
trainer kind of
footwork.
knows you're learning it to help your Muay Thai. They're not going to force you to do. There's certain things you can't do in boxing or in Muay Thai that you can do in boxing, but the boxing footwork is great, and there's lots of little details that you'll get just doing Western boxing that you may not get doing Muay Thai or other forms of kickboxing. So I would definitely recommend doing.
It makes you aware of the footwork.
Yeah.
It really think about each step.
You're aware of angles. When they talk about angles, it's like, what does that mean? And
it helps
so
you apply.
Really learn it when you're
sports.
doing boxing or Western boxing. So I would definitely recommend that. Again, working on your overall motor skills and overall footwork is a huge thing. Working on Thai specific footwork, watching fights, moving slowly, and then third, like I said, try to do some Western boxing because there's nothing like the footwork in Western boxing. It can make a huge difference in how you do Muay Thai, and you don't have to change the way you fight, but those little details will help you move properly. If you need to move to your left, how you move. If you need to move to the right, how do you move? If you need to pivot, how do you move? They're moving forward and back. Like there's a lot more footwork that is involved in boxing that can be transferred over to Muay Thai. So that would be my answer, and it's a little bit.
And it might get your
specific.
punches better too.
Yeah, exactly, absolutely. So I guess that's it. So as usual, all of our stuff is at the GymWits, gymwits.com. Email us at gymwits@gmail.com if you have any questions. And yeah, that's it. I'm Ryan George.
Awesome. I'm Justin Guild, aka Chef Sonic,
and we are the GymWits.
GymWits.